Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
And your heart drops into your lover's hands. Your head begins to feel the spin of confusion once again. So you carry...
The song that you are currently listening to is called Unlock Your Heart, and it is the first track off of the 2007 Scott Dale album Tiny Diamonds, which you can listen to wherever you get your music. To learn more about Scott Dale as a solo artist, be sure to head to his website at scottdalemusic.com, to his Facebook at Scott Dale Boulder, or to his Instagram at Scott Dale Live. You can also check out his YouTube channel at Scott Dale Music.
The thieves that steal your moments are your fears and your pain. Though we're living in the present, the future's ours to tame. But you'll never feel the joy if your heart is wrapped in chains. Unlock your heart and throw away the key. Soon we'll start to feel the love. Unlock your heart for me.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome to this week's Wednesday retrospective edition of the Mountaineer Podcast, where I give you interviews that I wasn't initially able to air when I conducted them. Sorry that this podcast episode is once again coming out a bit later than usual. I just got home from my family trip, and I brought COVID back with me. Isn't that fantastic? I ended up going out of state with my father and his brother, and I believe my dad got sick first, and then my uncle, and then I did. And now the symptoms are really hitting me. So, if I sound a bit hoarser than usual, that's why. I'm going to try my best not to talk quite as much as I usually do this time so that I don't cough my lungs out in the long run. But we still got to get this podcast done. As they say in theater, the show must go on. So let's bring on our first guest so I can just start asking the questions. Our first guest, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Troy Yanel. I play in a band called Colorado Junction String Band. We're based out of Broomfield, Colorado.
And when I initially conducted this interview with you, you had a performance in Busey Brews, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll be playing up at UC Brews up in Netherlands, I do believe this month. It's a great barbecue spot that also has some great beverages and does a great job about bringing up local music to play up in Netherlands, which is a great music town in our state of Colorado.
So Troy, what got you started in music in the first place?
Oh man, like a lot of musicians I have, or a lot of people I have older siblings, and would sit there and listen to records and tapes back in the 80s with my brother, and he got a guitar and it just really got me interested in it. One day I went down to Chicago with my parents and ended up buying a used guitar from a secondhand store and sat in my room and pounded it out and learned how to play.
How long have you been playing guitar for?
Oh man, I am 43 right now. I got my guitar when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old, so we're up to over 30 years playing. I went to music school when I was in Georgia, studied classical guitar, ended up moving over to music therapy, and then I got my undergrad and my master's in music therapy from Georgia College and State University in music therapy, but I've always played in bands. That's just something from the time I was like 16, playing high school parties. When I was a little older, I was playing in blues and jams bands, played in a big funk band with horns in college, and just have always just kept it going for the love of music, you know? At the end of the day, I just love performing and love playing in front of people, and that's really what carries me.
What kinds of things do you usually like to perform or write?
Well, like I said, there's two sides of music. You have the side where you're playing other people's songs, and when I do that, I always like to pay homage to some of my favorite songwriters, whether it be John Prine, Jerry Garcia, some of the old country writers, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash. And then the creative side of music, which is just really fun, it's whether I'm co-writing songs with my band or another member or shooting song ideas back and forth to my other friends who write songs. So I find songwriting is dynamic. Usually I do best in a collaborative effort, because when you write music collaboratively, you may get stuck and somebody else has a great idea. I always try to lean on my friends. If I'm missing a word or a phrase or I need a different chord change, I like to reach out to my songwriting buddies from all over the country and just have that collaborative effort.
Are there any styles in particular that you're focusing on right now?
Right now, I play a lot of bluegrass and a lot of Americana music, which I do understand that term Americana. It's a pretty wide umbrella, which is really nice. I play a lot of acoustic music right now, so basing stuff off of the bluegrass instrumentation, which has fiddle, mandolin, guitar, bass, but maybe doing some other type of song, maybe not bluegrass, maybe more folky or Americana with it as well.
And what are some of your favorite parts about being able to perform live and share all of this music with an audience?
Well, I think the best part is just connecting with people who are out to listen. Sometimes we have sit-down audiences that are listening to every word. Sometimes you have audiences where you're just background music. But it's that fun part of winning over a crowd and showing off your musician skills, your instrumentation skills, plus your vocals, trying to maybe get them with some sort of fun cover that most people don't play out. And then really after the performance, having those connections where people come up to you and talk about maybe a song that resonated with them, or maybe an original song that they really liked that they were able to connect to. So again, that connective piece that music bridges between people.
Is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows when they come and see you?
Just an overall good time. I think that's why people go to see live music, is there's that connective piece, a little bit of escapism. You're not around your typical part, and that live music is just so thriving out here in Colorado. I moved here from Nashville, Tennessee, which is one of the biggest music cities in the country, and I would say the pool of talent is just as great out here as it is in many parts of Nashville.
I find it funny that Troy mentioned Nashville in this particular interview, and that I am doing this interview at this particular time because I just came back from Tennessee. That is the state that I traveled to, and I arrived at the Nashville International Airport in order to make my way over to where my family was going to stay. And I can testify that that international airport really, really emphasized its musical connections in the state. It advertised Gibson guitars everywhere. It had bookshops that emphasized musical books. It really just felt like it emphasized its musical history a lot, and that was something that I really appreciated about that town. Anyway, enough rambling about Nashville. Let's get back to the interview. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your band, Colorado Junction. How did that band begin?
Well, with the name Colorado Junction, we all met through Craigslist of all places. A lot of us did, and we're from all over the country. That's how Colorado Junction, the term, kind of got made, because we all intersected in Colorado. A couple of guys, one's from Manhattan, one's from Portland, we have one from Texas. So we're all from all over the country. But what we bring together is solid musicianship, a want to have great vocals and 3 or 4 part harmonies. And then when we write songs, we want to write songs that people can connect with. Messages, meaning, feelings, all those things that when you write a good song, people can relate to. So Colorado Junction, we're a 5-piece band. David Weisbart, Allison Langley, Paul, and Aaron Pomerantz. But we make up the band. And with getting older and having families and businesses and work, the band has this motto, make what you can, and if you can't make it, don't. I booked the band from solo gigs all the way up to a 6-piece band with a drummer if the show needs it, but some shows it may only be a bluegrass trio or a 4-piece, because we all have lives outside the band, and to make a band full of adults, you have to respect each other's private lives, and that's one thing that we try to do, is respect what each other has to do outside the band. Many of us play in different bands as well, which again most bands don't like, but here it's just another creative outlet for us, and I feel those things keep bands moving forward and going longer if you respect people's outside lives and you respect other people playing in bands.
What are some of your favorite parts about being able to collaborate with the band members?
It's people looking like you may be writing a song, but having someone else look through the song through their lens or their experience, having just that person or people to maybe change a chord key or change a word to help change the meaning of a phrase. I think just having a writing partner just opens up the doors for writing as you go.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to our next guest?
No, we just get really excited to be playing in towns with deep music history like like Netherlands. Some of my favorite bands when I was not living in this part of the country, I'd always hear the town of Netherlands named for great bands like Yonder Mountain String Band, Leftover Salmon, just a couple of them that come from this type of area. So it's just great to be able to play in places and shadows of people that I've been listening to. I've been listening to Yonder since, man, I was a young kid, and just being able to play some of the places that are around those towns. Love playing in ski towns. I play up at Eldora during the year for their music series as well. So it's just a great music scene. That's what I really want to emphasize, is just the depth of musicians here and the styles of music are great. And I find people here, they're really collaborative and like to work with others. And maybe you didn't get the gig, they'll pull you on a side bill. All those little things matter with the music community, which I feel is great here.
Thank you so much, Troy, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. Even though this is the first time we're airing the podcast interview, I initially conducted this interview on May 1st, 2023, and you can check out the Music of the Mountains column that I wrote for Troy's solo show for the May 4th, 2023 edition of The Mountaineer, when he was performing at Busey Brews on Sunday, May 21st. I do not believe that Troy has any solo releases right now, and I do not believe that Colorado Junction String Band have any releases either, so I will not be featuring their music at any point during this podcast. However, if you want to learn more about Colorado Junction as a band, be sure to check them out on Facebook at Colorado Junction String Band and on Instagram at Colorado Junction. There are a couple of things I wanted to shout out before we moved on to our next guest. Troy has apparently been working at a place called Adams Camp for the last 8 years, currently working for the Colorado camp as a mountain therapy lead. Here's the description of the camp. At Adams Camp, unique therapy and adventure programs are designed and delivered by dedicated therapists and counselors who help special needs children, youth, and adults reach for the stars. According to Troy Yanel's official profile on the Adams Camp website, he is also working for the Boulder Valley School District as an Autism Intensive Learning Center teacher throughout the school year. You can learn more about the camp by going to adamscamp.org if you're curious about that. I also wanted to quickly mention the lineup of Colorado Junction to give everybody a quick shout out here. Of course, Troy is part of the Colorado Junction String Band, but there was also, at the time of this interview, Dave Weisbart on bass and vocals, Allison Langley on guitar and vocals, Aaron Pomerantz on mandolin and vocals, and Paul Kitek on fiddle. However, if you look at the Colorado Junction String Band Facebook page right now, they have a different lineup of people, and that lineup includes Troy on guitar and vocals, Chris Spurlock on mandolin and vocals, David Weisbart on bass and vocals, and Bobby Kreck on fiddle and vocals. So I just wanted to shout out those other members of the band too. I just wanted to shout out those couple of things before we moved on to our next guest and give Troy one final sign off. But before we actually move on to our next guest, here's an ad break.
I got too much information, too much to choose, too many obligations, and a million things to do. I need some limits here. It's just too much. I got too.
Here's an ozone tip for you. Upgrade your ride. Set the summer trend. Choose high MPG, or better yet, an EV to reduce ground level ozone. Ozone, created from pollutants like car exhaust, is the Front Range's biggest air quality issue and a leading cause of respiratory problems. Ready to upgrade your ride? Choosing a low-emission vehicle is the single best thing you can do for Front Range air quality. Improve Front Range air quality today. Know when it matters most. Here's Kelsey Simpkins from the Regional Air Quality Council to tell you more about how you can sign up for ozone alerts.
You can go to our website at simplestepbetterair.org, or you can text 21000 to Better Air CO. All this information, again, is on our website to sign up for these email or text alerts and help understand the context of when ozone is worse and what you can do about it. And especially if you have a lung issue or you're really looking to protect your health, then you can get these really timely alerts.
If you want to hear more from Kelsey Simpkins about what you can do to help control ozone, then be sure to listen to a previous episode of the Mountaineer Podcast. Music credits will be given at the end of this episode.
Don't wanna do it anymore. It's just too much. Somebody throw me a lifeline. The water is on the rise. There's other ways to spend my time. No time to lose. Somebody throw me a lifeline. Over my head this time.
Welcome back. And now let's welcome our second guest. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name is Scott Dale.
And when I initially interviewed you for The Mountaineer, you were also going to be performing at Busey Brews very soon, weren't you?
That's right. On the 25th from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock up on the deck, which I understand might be slightly under construction or something.
So how did you get started in music in the first place?
Wow, that goes way, way back. I would say probably when I was in maybe the second grade, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it just looked like a lot of fun. So I wanted a guitar ever since then, and when I was probably 3 years later, when I was about 10, Santa Claus brought me a Stella Harmony guitar, and I started playing it, and my older brother was a keyboard player and played piano, and he would sit at our family piano and play these Beatles songs, and there were these little chord diagrams above the words, and he explained to me what those were, because the guitar lessons I was taking weren't doing anything for me. They were teaching me how to read music, and it wasn't the kind of music I wanted to play. So I gave up on that pretty quickly and then taught myself from looking at those chord diagrams. And then as I got better, I'd say in the early 70s, I was taken by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and Neil Young in particular. And I was a young kid, preteen or young teenager with big eyes and big ears, and I was just watching what was going on the West Coast and newsreels about Woodstock and things like that. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. Well, it was from that time for the next 10 years, I was pretty rooted in what I call the West Coast country rock scene, which was Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Buffalo Springfield, Grateful Dead, Jackson Browne, Poco, Eagles, Flying Burrito Brothers, New Riders of the Purple Sage. Those were the bands that I really listened to a lot and learned to play their songs. And that's where my music DNA is based.
So you would say that a lot of your musical influences are based on this Western Coast scene?
Yes, definitely. And then it wasn't too long after that, Nashville sort of stole the term country rock. And to me, country rock was that West Coast scene. But then it became much more commercialized. And so the genre country rock means something different to most people now. And I was happy when the genre, a newer genre labeled Americana and Americana rock came out, because it better described what I play as opposed to country rock, when people immediately think Nashville commercialized country, which is not something that I ever even liked to listen to then or now.
Again, I find it very funny that both of the interviews I picked for this week mention Nashville when I just got back from the Nashville International Airport. I don't know why that happened. That is such an amazing coincidence. How have you pulled from those inspirations over the years in your own songwriting?
Yeah, I think in my own songwriting, people hear that. They hear that old 70s country rock influence. And also some Austin-based independent singer-songwriters, people like Lyle Lovett and some of those more Austin-based songwriters that came along in the later part of that period. And so it's just sort of what rolls off my fingers and comes out of my mouth, I guess, when I write songs.
What are some of your favorite parts about being able to perform live and share all of these songs with an audience?
I love the exchange of energy that happens between me as a performer and the audience responding, and sometimes that's on a higher energy level depending on what mood the crowd is in. I tend to read from the crowd. If they want to sit and talk to one another and have background music, I could do that. But also if they want to listen to the stories of my songs and my songwriting in more like a listening room environment, that's a very fun and rewarding interchange and exchange. Or if it's a party atmosphere where people want to move a little bit and sing along or whatever, then I turn up the energy a little bit, and that is always fun for everyone. So I think it's the connection with the audience, and just I feel like I was given a gift that I like to share with people.
And is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows when they come and see you?
I would say, just remembering and just having a memory of the experience and liking my songs and feeling the authenticity of having met.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I do have a new band project. It's a post-COVID band called Head West, and we are starting to do more public performances. We've done a lot of private gigs and private parties just from our network of people that know us. And now that we're coming out of the doldrums of the pandemic, being able to perform and have gigs in the Boulder County area is starting to bloom again. So I'm really excited about that.
And how did Head West form?
Yes, I think I've got a neighbor that plays the guitar, and he knew a drummer, drummer, and then the bass player in the band, Ben Wilson. I've actually been playing with him since 2012. He was in my previous band called Acoustic Ambush, and Acoustic Ambush has kind of gone by the wayside, and members have left the area, and some other things have reformed off of that. But I took my part of that to a different direction with these other new band members that are in Head West. And it's typically a 5-piece band sometimes, but we'll do anything from duo, trio, 4-piece, or 5-piece, depending on the size of the venue and how much room there is for us on stage. We do less of my original music in Head West. That band, we do a lot of covers, and I would say that the best description of the genre of Head West is Americana rock / jam band. We tend to stretch out versions with a lot of improvisation, which is obviously easier to do with more people in the band and difficult to do as an acoustic solo act.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we sign off for the week?
I'm looking forward to the gig and just kind of getting my face back out there. I played there before in the Yard, and that was, I believe, pre-pandemic. Actually, it might have been, I think it was during one of the lulls of the pandemic when things opened up for a short period for outdoor things. So that might have been in 2021 or something. I think that's right. Yeah. But it's a great place. It's a great establishment and well-run venue.
Thank you so much to Scott for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. Once again, even though this came out a bit later than we might have anticipated. I originally conducted this interview on June 11th, 2023, and ended up promoting Scott in the June 15th, 2023 edition of The Mountain Ear in Music of the Mountains for his Busey Brews show on Sunday, June 25th. Be sure to check out that edition of The Mountain Ear if you want to read what I wrote. I haven't been able to find anything about Head West online anywhere, but I found a couple of things about Scott Dale as a solo musician and his former band, Acoustic Ambush. Even though the band is currently not really performing right now, you can check out 2 releases from Acoustic Ambush wherever you get your music. Their studio album, Hitched to the Post, and their live album, Lights Out, from their night at the Boulder Theater. You can also check out Scott Dale's solo album from 2007, Tiny Diamonds, wherever you get your music. Check him out on YouTube at Scott Dale Music, and be sure to head to his website at scottdalemusic.com. You can also check out Scott Dale on Facebook at Scott Dale Boulder. You can check him out on Instagram at Scott Dale Live, or you can check out Acoustic Ambush at where else? Acoustic Ambush. Acoustic Ambush hasn't posted anything on Instagram in a while because they haven't performed in a while, but it's still a cool page to look at. I also wanted to shout out some other members of Acoustic Ambush because I found a set listing of some of the members who performed in the Boulder Theater show that is also on streaming services. Those names include Russ Grabsky, Jeff Lyons, Dave Haynes, and Chris Alamo. And finally, I wanted to mention that Scott was particularly humble in this particular podcast episode. Admittedly, I didn't ask anything about his award wins because I didn't know about them at the time, but after looking at his website, I found out that he was an honorable mention at the 2010 Rocky Mountain Folks Festival Songwriter Contest, that he was a regional finalist for the 2010 New Song Music Songwriters Contest, and that he was a 2009 Southwest Regional Finalist for the Mountain Stage Songwriter Contest. So congratulations to Scott for all of those awesome achievements. As far as I can tell, neither Troy nor Scott nor any of their bands have any performances in the Peak to Peak area coming up anytime soon, but I'll definitely be sure to promote them in the music mentions in the Friday episodes of the podcast if there's anything coming up. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to this week's Wednesday Retrospective edition of the Mountain Ear Podcast. If you want to share this episode around with your friends or family or whoever else you see fit, then be sure to head to the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com or the mtnear.com/the-mountain-ear-podcast to share these episodes around. And if you're interested in being a part of the podcast and you're a member of the Peak to Peak area, you've got an interview you want to conduct, or you have interest in advertising, then be sure to email me at media@themountaineer.com and we'll get something sorted for you. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully I'll be better in the next couple of days, and hopefully my voice wasn't too painful to listen to this time around. At least the recording process wasn't particularly grueling for this episode, which I was worried it was going to be. But thank you guys so much for listening. I'll be back on Friday, maybe a little later than usual, depending on how much rest I need, with the weekly Music of the Mountains podcast. I'll see you guys then.
Walked into the pawn shop, a of her small West Texas town. She was wearing her sunglasses to hide her tearful frown. Well, she took the ring from her pocket and gave it to the man. He offered $50, which she gladly took and ran.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Tiny Diamonds, and the song that you heard in the ad break is called Lifeline, and both of these tracks are from a 2007 Scott Dale album, with Tiny Diamonds being the titular track. To learn more about Scott Dale as a solo musician, then be sure to head to his website at scottdalemusic.com, to his Instagram at scottdale live, to his Facebook at scottdale boulder, or to his YouTube at scottdale music.
And it's one more tiny diamond, one more broken heart. Diamonds are forever, it's the love that falls apart. One day a man came into the store to buy his girl a ring. He spotted one he'd bought before, he'd lost everything. He picked a new one on the right and said, that one will do. Perhaps this ring will do the trick, then burn a time or two. He's got enough for one more tiny diamond, but not one more broken heart.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.